The Battle of Kitchener's Wood was fought during World War I during the Second Battle of Ypres. Location: the name of this oak plantation derived from the French name Bois de Cuisines, where French troops housed their field kitchens, and not in reference, as is sometimes thought, to the British general officer of the same name. Background: on the night of the 22nd of April 1915, the Germans launched the first poison gas attack of the war on the Western Front. The object of their attack was the Ypres salient, and they concentrated their initial attack on two French divisions, the 45th and 79th. Attacking in the evening of the 21st, the two French divisions found themselves ill-prepared to cope with the chlorine gas and promptly broke, leaving a gap in the line 4 miles wide. The 1st Canadian Division, which had been in France since February, was hastily pulled out of reserve in order to seal the line. In particular, a position known as Kitchener's Wood was ordered reinforced, and 2 Canadian battalions were selected for the job, which in the event turned out to be a major counterattack, and the first major offensive operation of Canadian troops in the war. The battle at Kitchener's Wood, the 10th Battalion, CEF of the 2nd Canadian Brigade was ordered to counter-attack into the gap created by the gas attack. They formed up after 11 p.m. on the night of the 22nd of April. The 16th Battalion of the 3rd Canadian Brigade arrived as they were forming, tasked to support the advance. Both battalions had over 800 men, formed up in waves of 2 companies each. The order to advance was given at 11:46 p.m. The leading waves of the 10th Battalion covered half the distance from the start line to the wood, running into a strong hedge interlaced with wire. No reconnaissance had been done prior, and the battalion was forced to break through the obstacle with rifle butts, bringing down fire from German machine guns about 200 yards distant. Both battalions charged the last 200 yards to the wood, threw the Germans out, and suffered more than 75% casualties. Small parties of French troops, eager to reclaim the French guns that had been abandoned in the wood, had also participated in the battle. After the war, Marshal Ferdinand Foch, the Allied Supreme Commander, remarked that the greatest act of the war had been the assault on Kitchener's Wood by the 10th and 16th Battalions. Aftermath: the fighting in the wood continued on for several more days, as German attacks continued to mount along the salient, even though no clear advantage could be gained. The 1st Division as a whole suffered some 60% casualties before being relieved, and the 10th and 16th Battalions were reduced to less than 20% of the pre-battle strength. The commanding officer of the 10th, Lieutenant Colonel Russell Lambert Boyle, was gravely wounded by machine gun fire in the opening attack on the wood. He succumbed to his wounds days later. Both battalions needed considerable time and effort to rebuild. Colonel Garnet Hughes, who had directed the ill-planned attack, was criticized for his poor leadership. Honors: after the war, 2nd Ypres and St. Julien were granted as battle honors, but to the dismay of the units that fought there, Kitchener's Wood was not. The commanding officer of the Canadian Scottish Regiment, which perpetuates the 16th Battalion CEF, organized a lobby to have a dress distinction awarded for the part the 10th and 16th Battalions played at Kitchener's Wood, which was never recognized with a battle honor. In the 1930s, a distinctive brass shoulder title was awarded. In the case of the Canadian Scottish, the title consisted of a brass acorn and oak leaf over a red felt backing surrounded by the title Canadian Scottish. The Calgary Highlanders and Winnipeg Light Infantry, both of whom perpetuated the 10th Battalion CEF, were also awarded distinctive shoulder badges, though the pattern consisted only of of a brass badge with the initials of the regiment directly on the oak leaf. The WLI were absorbed into the Royal Winnipeg Rifles in 1955, and the WLI badge fell out of use. The acorn and oak leaf are symbolic of the heavy oak trees of Kitchener's Wood, which were a significant obstacle to infantrymen in 1915. Photos, taken 2 years later, showed that the forest was eventually obliterated during the fighting. Tradition in the Canadian Army has been that metal shoulder badges consist only of letters and numerals, with only a few exceptions. The use of honorary distinctions is common, however, in the British Army, such as the addition of the Sphinx to regimental badges. Legacy. The Old City Hall in Calgary, Alberta bears a plaque dedicated to Lieutenant Colonel Russ Boyle and the men of the 10th Battalion who made the charge at Kitchener's Wood. The Calgary Highlanders, who perpetuate the history and traditions of the 10th Battalion, commemorate the battle annually on the weekend closest to April 22. St. Julian's Day, as it is known, usually involves an all-ranks reunion dinner, an officers' mess function, a Freedom of the City parade, and a church service. The regimental hockey team is known as the Oakleafs, and a regimental news sheet known as the Oakleaf has been published on and off over the years. In addition to the official news sheet, the Glen, in Belgium, the Vrije Basis School of the current-day St. Julian displays an Oakleaf memorial in honor of the event. The 2008 film Passchendaele presents a fictionalized view of a soldier who fought in both the Second and Third Battle of Ypres, including the Battle of Kitchener's Wood. The main character is based on 10th Battalion veteran Michael Dunn. On the 22nd of April 2015, exactly 100 years later, soldiers of the Calgary Highlanders and the Canadian Scottish Regiment assembled at the former location of Mousetrap Farm and paraded to the former location of the Wood. A service of remembrance was conducted at sunset at the Oakleaf Memorial, and soldiers, veterans and family members of both regiments were hosted to a dinner on the site of the former battlefield.